What's up, guys? So I'm not really sure how I'm gonna have this conversation. So I know that I just need to start. So we're kind of entering a really interesting stage. We're seeing some things in the economy that are starting to look a little wonky, and it's making everyone nervous. And trying to identify like what to do next is very difficult. One of the challenges that I'm running into now is in my household, there's a debate that that we're having about whether or not owning a business versus just getting a regular 9 to 5 job is going to be better option. And I get the concern, and I think a lot of people probably have this concern, especially if they're either thinking about doing a new business or if they currently have a business and it hasn't fully it hasn't gotten to the point where they're happy about how business is coming, or even just looking out into the future to see how that's going to impact business overall. So, for example, I'm in real estate, and we're starting to see interest rates are really starting to skyrocket. We're anticipating, interest rates for mortgage lending in the 7.5% to possibly 8% coming by summertime. So that obviously would impact any kind of real estate activity, from a buyer's perspective. So identifying, what to do in that situation is it time for, should I consider getting out of the business, or should I look at other alternatives, whether those are other business opportunities or even potentially just getting a traditional 9 to 5, so on and so forth. So, there's a lot of ways that I guess, I could look at this, and I'm trying to be, I'm an optimist by nature, so I have to be careful not to be overly optimistic. But I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. And the concern I have with, let's say, for example, a 9 to 5 is that that's not a guarantee of anything. It basically just puts, in my perspective, it puts the power of my ability to generate income into someone else's hands. And that really makes me nervous, especially now, having seen what happened in 2008 when a ton of businesses kind of shut down or downsized, and most of the time the newer employees are the ones that end up getting cut in the first place. So I'm not excited about the prospect of going into like a traditional employer-employee scenario where I'm ultimately an employee in a company. But I could understand why that would sound very appealing, because the idea would be that if that employment opportunity doesn't fall apart, then you have this sort of consistent income that comes in over time during a period where the economy's slow or slower, or there's maybe even serious, right? So that's definitely a cause for I could understand the perspective of that option, right? I don't like that option personally, and the reason why I don't like that option is because I feel like as a business owner, I can control more of the direction that I go in. So, for example, if I know that let's say let's look at commercial real estate as an example. My business is commercial real estate. And let's say sales and purchases of real estate, of commercial real estate, for example, and this could apply towards, I don't know if it would apply towards residential, but maybe. But let's say sales and purchases basically come to a screaming halt, and people stop buying commercial real estate. And I don't know if they would stop, they'd probably just slow down. But let's say it's not enough for me to really be able to make a living off of. The good thing about commercial is I can adjust my business model to lean heavily towards tenant rep, landlord rep, where I'm essentially representing lease exchanges between landlords and potential tenants. And we're going to still see a lot of that because you're going to still have companies that are either, and during shifts like this, whenever we see a shift, there's going to be those few that grow, and there's going to be a bunch that are going to have to downsize, and that's okay. That's all normal. That's part of the cycle, all that good stuff. But the thing is that, if a company is at a certain size and they feel they need to downsize, well, the space that they're in, if they're leasing, is going to need to be smaller. So they're going to have to leave the space that they're in and lease into something smaller. And then vice versa, you're going to have some businesses that are going to be able to, let's say, take more market share, and this is a growth opportunity for them, and they've been able to take advantage of the circumstances, and they're actually able to grow. So they're going from being very small to much bigger, and they need a bigger space. So I guess my point is in commercial real estate, there's an opportunity for me to continue to develop transactions. It just wouldn't necessarily be in sales. Maybe it'll be leaning heavily towards lease transactions where I'm helping businesses find other locations that are more suited to whatever trajectory that they have with regard to their business. So if I were an employee, let's say working for a company that exclusively did commercial real estate sales, they would probably just downsize, and I would not have any control over that downsize, and I would be at risk of potentially losing my job. So as a business owner, I can just kind of adjust my business a little bit, like just kind of go like that a little bit, and then now I can still continue to do business. And maybe my numbers may not be as high, or it may be a game changer, and all of a sudden my business quadruples. I don't, we never know how that turns out, but the idea here is that transitioning is something that's very plausible, right? It's just a question of being flexible. And then of course, with a business, I can choose to add additional services that might be helpful. So, maybe one of the things that I'm thinking about is, adding a marketing arm, because I have a pretty good marketing background, and offer, for sale by owner marketing packages for folks that want to essentially sell their own property, if that's something that they choose to do. I may offer maybe just some consultative opportunities. So someone may not necessarily, for example, let's say a bank is taking over a property, and they need a consultant to come in and kind of provide, what are the lease terms that can be expected? How much is the property ultimately worth in terms of market value? So I can provide consultation services. I could also provide consultative services from a marketing perspective. So, really there's a number of different areas or arms, I guess, that I can add to my business, where they're like add-ons or alternate opportunities that are still relatively in line with what my business offers, and allows me to continue to generate more business. I don't know that I just wouldn't have that ability if I were an employee, which is why I'm it's very hard for me to understand, why that would be a good option for me when you're talking about, an employer, who could potentially, they themselves may have to downsize, and ultimately I'm left with, being at risk of being cut just because I might be newer, or maybe that my department is no longer needed, or whatever the case may be. So I'm really going to be working diligently to figure this out, and I'm going to share with you guys as much as I can on what this journey looks like, because there's definitely going to be a lot of change that's going to be coming, and we've not really seen, we've seen essence and little bits of it, but I feel like those changes are going to be pretty heavy, and I don't know that they're necessarily going to be. It's not a question of good or bad. It's just a question of different, right? That the market's going to be different. The way that people, have a need for goods and services is going to change, and how people operate is going to change. And if indeed the economy changes such that people start losing their jobs and that becomes a real problem. Hopefully, maybe some of what I'm sharing here may be helpful for someone else that is looking to figure out a way to still feed their family and find success and do the things that they need to do. So I'm gonna be diligent with providing some feedback and some input on my experience here, and I'm gonna share with you kind of the stuff that I'm doing so that you guys can see for yourself if this is something that you may want to try or experience. And feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments. I'm gonna do what I can to get through what is definitely going to be some changes that we're seeing in our economy. Hopefully, it's not anything that's going to be too drastic, but all things being said, it's there's a lot of red flags out there, and it's making a lot of people nervous. So I'm gonna post what I can. I'm gonna share what I can. I hope it's helpful for you guys, and if it is, great. If it's not, I mean, hey, that's the case. I'm not going to be for everyone. So I hope this is helpful, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing, what I'm working on. And if you have any thoughts or if you want to learn about anything in particular, just give me a holler, and I'll respond as best I can. Okay? I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.